Unless you are Doctor Spock in the Star Trek series or a Jedi Knight in the Star Wars fantasy movies, your thoughts have no power. That is to say, your thoughts do not have the magical power you might imagine and fear. Your thoughts are only capable of producing and enabling feelings and emotions within you. Even though they are your thoughts, you are unable to project your thoughts as a form of energy outside of yourself, for good or for bad. Your thoughts have no power to produce the action or the reaction of any other person, event, or circumstance. Unless you share the content or the context of your thoughts with another person, your thoughts are also unknowable to anyone. There is no one who can read your mind, and there are no recording devices that are able to transcribe your thoughts. Again, with the exception of the emotions and feelings they produce within you, which may provide a clue to your thinking and your interpretation of the meaning of the thought at best, your thoughts are yours and yours alone. Fundamentally, there is no substantial difference between a thought that you believe that you completely and freely generate and a thought that seems to you to be random or which came out of nowhere. Each thought, random or freely generated, have the same meaning. They are neither good or bad. They are just thoughts. An impure thought is not impure. The subject matter of the thought may commonly be associated in some manner or form with purity, but the thought itself is not impure. So-called blasphemous thoughts are not expressions of blasphemy. The subject matter of the thought may commonly be associated in some manner or form with blasphemy, but the thought itself is not blasphemous. Whatever the subject matter of a thought, and whatever it may be routinely associated with, does not change the fundamental reality of what a thought is, or what it is capable of producing or not producing. They are just thoughts. To clearly make this point, and to illustrate the truth of what I'm saying, I'm going to take a moment now away from this reflection and freely and completely generate 5 thoughts that I understand are routinely associated with the virtue of purity. In addition, I'm going to freely generate 5 thoughts that I understand are routinely associated with blasphemy. 10 thoughts, each having the power to produce within me a variety of feelings and emotions. 10 thoughts, all of which have potentially serious subject matter, but are only thoughts and nothing more. And despite their serious subject matter, are certainly not in any manner sinful. They are just thoughts. My thoughts. That is all. In addition to taking the time to freely generate 10 powerful thoughts, I also freely chose the other night to watch 5 movie trailers, advertisements that are available to me on my streaming device. I chose trailers that I assumed contained violence, sexual content, one that is being protested because it is viewed by some people as irreverent and blasphemous, and one that was very emotional. In each instance, depending on the effectiveness of the creative process used in making the movie trailer, I reacted in a different manner to each one. Although I reacted, generating all manner of thoughts, and in one case experienced a very strong feeling, There was nothing more to it. I did not sin, and the thoughts that I experienced while viewing the movie trailers were not in any manner sinful. As I continue to reflect with you on this very serious subject, I can anticipate the objections of those of you who are listening to argue with my experience. Still others will assert that what I experience is not the same as what they've experienced. Some will no doubt wonder if I'm saying something that's unorthodox and not reflective of the moral teaching of the church. And some of you may even feel the beginning of a rising anxiety and the desire to react to the anxiety in some way to dampen the feeling or the emotion that's associated with your anxiety. To each person who wishes to argue an exception or to insist on a different opinion, let me assure you, what I'm saying is 100% orthodox. Thoughts are thoughts. They have no inherent power. They do not generate any response outside of the person. They are not in any way, shape, or form magical or powerful. At best, thoughts can produce over a series of time an attitude or a sense of self that has been changed or reorientated as a result of what has been experienced. For example, the first time you have a sexual thought, you might well react with a stronger feeling than the second time you experience the same thought. That, however, is not indicative of anything other than personal experience. It is most certainly not indicative of sin. Although I am confident that what I'm sharing with you is authentic Catholic teaching and reflective of an orthodox morality, I'm also aware that there are differing opinions. Again, for the purpose of preparing this video, I deliberately searched on my browser, when are thoughts sinful? And immediately arrived at a wealth of material. In each instance, the resounding answer was yes, thoughts can be sinful. But with each answer, the list of exceptions was also provided. There were all sorts of discussions about dwelling on the thought, and still other descriptions of entertaining the thought. In each instance, no author or moral authority referenced could substantially quantify how much time and energy needed to be dedicated to the effort of dwelling or entertainment, or clarify when the thought morphed into some kind of sin. In short, the answer to the question was yes, but there are also so many exceptions. So many exceptions that in fact they make the assertion that a thought is sinful pretty meaningless, since few or any people can fulfill even the minimal requirements. St. Alphonsus Liguori, patron saint of moral theologians and doctor of the church, made a moral point that is perhaps essential here. When there are many different opinions that are all reasonable, a person can freely and confidently choose whatever opinion they desire to choose. In this example, you can choose the strictest interpretation, which may well be the impulse of the most scrupulous person. Or you may freely choose the opinion that is less confining and allows for a different interpretation of human experience, the opinion that I'm presenting as the most helpful. There is no such thing as magical thinking. Thoughts are thoughts. They do not have the power to project any kind of energy or consequence. Thoughts are unique and are private, known only to the individual person. Although thoughts do have the power to generate some sort of emotional response or strong feeling in the person who is experiencing the thought, the emotion and the feeling is different than the thought. In no instance can a thought be sinful, regardless of the feeling or the emotion that it may well trigger. Feelings and emotions are also not sinful. They too are human experiences. From an historical perspective, there are some obvious reasons that are easily discoverable that illustrate why thoughts, even thoughts that were randomly generated by the mind, were perceived as dangerous and unhelpful, or for that matter, potentially sinful. Understanding this perspective can provide a helpful context that will enable our more complete understanding. From the perspective of the formation of a healthy and mature spiritual way of living, any thought that disconnects your lived experience from the pursuit of holiness is unhelpful. For a monk, for example, who was trying to live the life of a vowed religious person who was witnessing to the love of Jesus, focusing his attention on what was good and beautiful was far more beneficial in his formation than choosing to focus on a thought or an experience that took him further away from a religious perspective. From the perspective of a married couple, or a single man or woman, or any other person who was trying to live a good and holy life, there was a little more freedom permitted in what might be imagined, but not too much. It was okay to think of yourself in relationship with another person, but it was not considered a good thing to spend time fantasizing about that relationship. Part of the reason was the traditional Christian distrust of earthly pleasure as compared with the pleasures that were to come to those who remained faithful and true. But another reason was very practical. Focus and discipline were considered to be virtuous, and anything that took your focus away from what you were supposed to be thinking and doing was at best suspect. For those who were in power and who desired to keep their power, it was considered to be the better choice to disrupt and cut off any form of disobedience when it was still only in the thought process. Once the thought was spoken or shared, others might be attracted to the thought. And that is how rebellion takes root. The belief in the divine right of kings, or the belief that a person in authority was exercising that authority because it was God's will, fused the disobedient with rebellion, not only against human authority, but also against divine authority. You can see how it might be viewed as virtuous to pay attention to any kind of thoughts because of the potential of those thoughts in the choices and in the behavior of people. Now, obviously, this listing and historical perspective is not complete. It's only a small indication of the many layers of meaning and understanding that are part of the process of coming to an appreciation of why we might believe what we believe. Even a partial understanding is helpful, and perhaps just enough to encourage an acceptance of the main point of what I'm trying to get across. Thoughts are thoughts. They are part of what it means to be human. They do not indicate anything about who you are as a human person in relationship with God. Your relationship with God is not dependent on any kind of thought that you may or may not have. You cannot somehow hurt God's feelings or put your relationship with God into some kind of mortal tailspin because you have a powerful and emotional thought. Your thoughts might make you feel bad. You may react strongly to them and wonder aloud to yourself or to another person, I wonder where that came from. But it's not a sin. It means you are a human being. You may find it helpful to try and replace your feeling of shock and horror, or for that matter, even disappointment or regret when such thoughts occur, with a feeling of wonder and mystery. Stand in wonder and in awe to the power of OCD-generated thoughts, which are intended to fuel your fear and anxiety with a sense of the power of OCD at work. It is your disorder that generates this kind of feeling and this kind of suffering, not you. Be at peace.